Hey guys, Jay here from Video by Jay. I am so excited today to finally bring you the first episode of this new series that I'm launching. And what it is that we're all familiar at this point with the current situation where we have to stay home. And because of this situation, the best solution that we found to stay in contact with our crowd, whether it's our students or our clients, is through videos, which is what I'm doing right now. And basically, what this series will do is that every time I will bring you a different tip or technique that you can use to improve the overall quality of your home videos, whether it's a live video or a pre-recorded video for the social media platforms. But every time you're gonna have a different tip to improve the overall quality and just make it look more professional. So we're gonna start, and let me just quickly say that this episode today, and maybe the next episode too, is really gonna focus on smartphones just because it's the most accessible camera that we have, and with the technology that is available nowadays, everybody has a smartphone, but the quality that we can get out of these cameras is already good enough. So the first tip, okay, naturally when we hold our phone, we just have it in an upright position like this, and then we scroll, we type, whatever we're doing. So when we're filming, just because it's so natural for us to always hold our phone like that, we have the tendency of just still keeping it in this orientation to just film whatever we're filming. Now, there's nothing really wrong with that, but like if we want to step things up and really look professional, the proper orientation is the standard that we use in cinema or whatever. If you just even look at the screens that you have, like computer screens, laptop screens, even your TV at home, or when you go to the movie theater, it's a widescreen format. So when you're filming, if you want to respect the standards, you would use your phone in this orientation, okay? So that we call it the landscape mode or the landscape orientation versus this, which would be called the portrait orientation or portrait mode. So please, landscape, not portrait. That's the first thing. And the second thing I wanted to talk to you about today, it's something that you probably never really paid attention or maybe never even knew that it was there, but it's the auto exposure and autofocus lock. Jay, what's exposure? What's focus? I'm glad you asked. Now we're gonna start with the exposure. Now we're gonna cover the focus in another episode because there's a lot to say about focus. But for the exposure, what is exposure? Exposure, it's basically, if we want to put it in simple terms, it's brightness, right? Now, when you're capturing an image, depending on where you're pointing your phone, the brightness can be too low, which can cause that you can't really see the details in the shot. And at this point, we will say that the image is underexposed. As opposed to, if you have a bright image it's too bright and some of the spots in the image are completely white and you cannot really see the details again, we would say that this image is overexposed. So what the phone does is that depending on where you're pointing your phone or you're pointing the camera, if you're pointing at a bright spot, the camera is going to adjust the brightness or the exposure. It's going to compensate by lowering the brightness because the scene is already too bright, so it's lowering the brightness to bring it down to a normal level. And the opposite is also true if you're taking a picture in the dark or you're filming in the dark. The camera is at least going to try to bring the brightness up, to compensate so that we can see what you're pointing your camera at and make the image look natural or look normal. So the problem here and why I'm telling you about this feature is because with the technology that we have in these smartphones, even though we come a long way and the technology is really like good, but it's still not perfect. So what happens is that when we're filming, and again, if we're filming our children or whatever, we move a lot. So we might be pointing the camera at a darker spot and all of a sudden move and point it in another direction where it's a brighter scene. Now, what the camera is gonna do is that it's gonna try to compensate, but the adjustment, you're gonna see the adjustment. You're gonna see a sudden jump. You're gonna see the image go from bright to dark or from dark to bright. It can be distracting, and if it's done like a lot of time in a short video, at this point here, that's one of the first things that's gonna give it away that you're using a smartphone, because we're kind of subconsciously used to seeing these jumps in smartphone videos. So our brain is automatically gonna associate it to a smartphone video, which is not a bad thing, but again, we're here to try to step up things and make things look really professional and next level. So we switch things up a little bit here just to demonstrate the feature that we've been talking about and also the issue that we're trying to overcome. Now, I know that recently I spoke about where you're pointing your camera, whether it's a darker scene or a brighter scene, but I chose this setup just because it's more relatable to what you're gonna be doing eventually in this current situation. So most likely it's gonna be you standing in front of a camera, talking or dancing or mixing, whatever you're doing. But what I want you to pay attention to is the window behind me, okay, the exposure, how it's gonna change, and also the exposure on my face based on the different movements that I'm gonna do, okay? So So as you can see, based on the movement I do, whether I turn my face or I get out of frame, sometimes my face becomes darker and you can see the details in the window, and sometimes the window becomes overexposed and it's all white, and then my face is a little bit fairly exposed. So what's happening is that the phone is trying to decide whether it's going to expose for my face, to make my face decently exposed, or to expose for the window, basically to lower the brightness, because this is a really bright spot in the image so that you can see the details. When the window is overexposed, it's completely white and you cannot see anything through it. And when my face is underexposed, my face becomes too dark and you don't really see the details on my face. And this is due to the limitation of the dynamic range of the phone sensors that we have, like the cameras. And unfortunately, we have to choose. We have to choose whether we want my face to be properly exposed or the window to be properly exposed. And obviously, since I'm the main subject of this video, I'm gonna want my face to be exposed. Now, how we're gonna do that is that we're gonna do that by activating the feature that I've been telling you about, which is the auto exposure and autofocus lock. So AE/AF lock. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna tap and hold, really important, tap and hold, not just tap. Tap and hold until we see the indicator, the AE/AF shows up on the screen. And now you can see that the yellow on the circle indicates that the exposure is locked on my face. Now also notice that there's a slider next to the indicator. Now the slider is basically for us to adjust the exposure. We can slide it down for it to look darker, or we can slide it up for it to look brighter. So it's gonna be up to us. We can try to find a fair middle where my face still looks good and then the window is not too bright, or we can just decide to blow up the window completely and just have my face properly exposed. So at this point, it's gonna be up to you. And the good thing is that whatever we choose is gonna be locked at this. Now that we have our exposure lock, I'm just gonna show you that I'm gonna do the same moves and nothing is gonna change. So the exposure never adjusts because the exposure is locked. We chose our value and we lock it to that. Whatever we do, it's never gonna jump. And again, if we want to exit this feature, if we want to exit the lock feature, we wanna go back to automatic. This time we don't need to hold, we just tap and the yellow is gone. That means we're back to automatic. So that's really it. And as you can see, it's something that is really simple, but it does make a big difference. And again, like I said earlier, with the technology that is available nowadays in smartphone cameras, as long as you're able to control this thing here where the exposure jumps constantly and becomes distracting, as long as you can control that with the technique that I showed you earlier, you can get some really nice footage and some really good quality images from your smartphone, so much that if you show it to somebody else, they might even not believe that you filmed it on the smartphone because the quality is so good. And that's exactly what happened recently when we filmed the little skit. Um, Actually, it was mainly filmed with my smartphone, and I'll probably leave a link here on the description so that you can check it out. But basically, like, I showed it to a couple of people and they were super impressed, and they wouldn't even believe that I shot it like on my smartphone. So as long as you continue following these techniques and these tips, you will certainly take your videos to the next level and have them overall look a little more professional. So this is it, guys. I am super happy at least that we completed this first episode, and like I said, there's a lot more to come. And don't worry, it's not only gonna be focused on smartphones. We're gonna talk about different other devices, whether it's you have like a regular DSLR camera or a mirrorless camera, if you have an action camera like a GoPro, a point and shoot camera, or even like cinema cameras. So all these techniques and all these tips can apply to any camera, but also we're gonna take the time to talk about different settings on different type of cameras to cover like a maximum of people that depending on what you're using. So I'm trying to make this really interactive. So if you have tips, questions, suggestions, feedbacks that you want to send me, don't hesitate to leave them in the description below, or you can even send me a personal message. But yeah, like I'm counting on your feedback, and yeah, I'm counting on your interaction to make this show better because I'm doing this for you. So guys, stay safe, stay indoors, and yeah, I'll see you in the next episode. Ciao.